History has shown that wars are rarely decided by who has the biggest arsenal. More often, victory belongs to the side that adapts first when everything begins to fall apart. Plans that looked flawless on paper can unravel in seconds, while a single unexpected decision can completely change the course of a battle. Today's story follows one of those moments, a carefully coordinated strike where every missile, every aircraft, and every radar operator became part of a race against time. At first, everything seemed to be unfolding exactly as planned, but within minutes, a chain of unexpected events forced both sides to abandon their original playbooks and rely on instinct, experience, and technology to survive. What followed was a non-stop contest between electronic warfare, missile defenses, naval firepower, and split-second judgment that demonstrated just how unpredictable modern combat has become. Before we continue, if you enjoy detailed military documentaries that explain the technology and tactics behind today's most advanced weapons, consider supporting the channel by leaving a like and subscribing. It helps us continue bringing you well-researched stories and in-depth analyses of the world's most fascinating military operations. The operation began quietly, almost deceptively so. Far out at sea, several cruise missiles separated from their launch platform and settled into an incredibly low flight path only a few meters above the water. Their mission depended on remaining invisible for as long as possible. Flying at such a low altitude allowed them to disappear beneath the horizon from the perspective of most coastal radar stations, giving defenders only a short window to react before impact. It was a tactic refined over decades and trusted by planners around the world because it had repeatedly proven successful in real conflicts. Inside the operations center responsible for monitoring the coastline, the atmosphere was routine. Radar operators watched familiar patterns drift across their displays while commanders expected another uneventful shift. Then one operator noticed something unusual. Tiny echoes appeared near the edge of his radar screen. They were weak, inconsistent, and so distant that they should not have existed at all. His first instinct was to suspect equipment failure. He recalibrated the system, adjusted the settings, and repeated the scan. The mysterious returns remained exactly where they had been before. Most operators would have dismissed the contacts as electronic interference or harmless reflections from the sea. Instead, he trusted his training. Rather than keeping the information to himself, he immediately alerted neighboring radar stations and higher headquarters. Within minutes, isolated observations from different locations began forming a larger picture. Multiple sensors were reporting similar contacts moving in the same direction at extraordinary speed. The discovery triggered an immediate shift across the coastal defense network. Crews rushed to power up missile batteries, command posts activated emergency communication channels, and officers abandoned routine procedures in favor of rapid combat preparations. What had started as one uncertain radar contact was quickly becoming a confirmed threat. No one yet knew exactly what was approaching, but everyone understood that valuable minutes had already been lost. Ironically, the radar operator's success had little to do with superior equipment. Nature itself had quietly tipped the balance. Unusual atmospheric conditions over the warm sea had bent radar waves beyond their normal limits, allowing objects flying close to the surface to appear much earlier than expected. It was a rare advantage that no military planner could predict with certainty, and it threatened to undo months of preparation. But while defenders celebrated their early warning, the attackers were already preparing their own response. What happened next would become a battle fought not with explosions, but with invisible waves traveling through the air. The moment commanders realized their element of surprise had been compromised, the mission entered an entirely different phase. Instead of relying solely on stealth, the attacking force now needed to blind the very radar network that had detected them. Unlike missiles or bombs, electronic warfare leaves no visible trail. There are no dramatic explosions announcing its arrival, yet it can determine the outcome of an entire battle long before the first weapon reaches its target. Specialized aircraft already orbiting safely away from the coastline immediately shifted into action. Their crews analyzed the enemy radar emissions, identifying frequencies, signal strength, and operating patterns in real time. Within seconds, powerful electronic jamming flooded the airwaves. Radar screens that had displayed clear contacts only moments earlier suddenly filled with noise, false echoes, and distorted signals. Operators struggled to separate genuine targets from electronic deception, as their carefully organized picture of the battlefield began to dissolve. For the defending crews, the situation became increasingly frustrating. They knew something dangerous was approaching, but every attempt to improve their radar picture was met by stronger interference. Some systems briefly regained contact only to lose it again moments later. Others switched frequencies in an effort to escape the jamming, forcing both sides into a rapid contest of adaptation. Every adjustment by one side triggered an equally rapid response from the other. Behind this electronic duel stood an extraordinary communication network, connecting ships, aircraft, and command centers into a single battlefield picture. Information gathered by one platform was immediately shared with every other participant. A pilot hundreds of kilometers away could benefit from a radar contact detected by a destroyer at sea, while a naval commander could instantly receive updates from aircraft flying high above the battlefield. Instead of dozens of independent units fighting separate battles, the entire force operated as one coordinated system. Meanwhile, the cruise missiles continued racing toward their objectives, completely unaware of the invisible struggle unfolding around them. Their guidance systems faithfully followed their programmed routes, while electronic specialists fought desperately to preserve the narrow window of confusion needed for the strike to succeed. Every second gained through successful jamming increased the attackers' chances. Every second lost allowed defenders to recover and organize their response. Neither side could afford a mistake. If the jamming ended too soon, the missile defenses would have ample time to engage the incoming weapons. If it continued too aggressively, it could reveal exactly where the electronic warfare aircraft were operating. The battle had become a delicate balancing act in which precision mattered just as much as raw power. But while both sides concentrated on radar screens, another danger was already racing across the sea toward the fleet. While electronic warfare crews fought their invisible battle across the airwaves, commanders at sea faced a far more immediate danger. Early warning systems began reporting fast-moving contacts approaching from multiple directions. At first, the information appeared fragmented, just isolated tracks moving across radar screens. But as additional sensors contributed data, a clearer picture emerged. Something had been launched toward the fleet. Modern warships are built around a simple principle: detect threats as early as possible. The farther away a danger is discovered, the more opportunities exist to stop it. Yet every sailor knows that even the most advanced radar system can provide only seconds of warning under the wrong circumstances. Low-flying missiles, especially those designed to skim just above the waves, can appear with frightening speed. One moment the screen is clear. The next, an object is racing toward the ship at hundreds of miles per hour. Combat teams immediately shifted into defensive mode. Missile launchers rotated toward assigned sectors while operators analyzed the incoming tracks. The challenge was not simply identifying a threat. It was identifying the right threat. The battle space was crowded with friendly aircraft, outgoing weapons, support platforms, and electronic signals. One mistake could result in catastrophic consequences. Every contact had to be classified correctly before a defensive missile could be launched. As tension increased, the fleet's integrated combat systems began proving their value. Data flowed continuously between ships, aircraft, and command centers, allowing every participant to share the same operational picture. What one radar saw, everyone saw. What one sensor confirmed, everyone could immediately verify. This collective awareness reduced uncertainty and allowed commanders to react faster than any single platform could alone. Then came the order: defensive missiles launched from the fleet, accelerating into the sky with extraordinary speed. Seconds later, one of the incoming threats disappeared from every display. The interception was successful, but no one celebrated. Experienced crews understood that modern attacks rarely involve a single weapon. If one missile had been launched, others might already be following. Every radar operator remained focused on their screen, searching for the next threat before it appeared too close to stop. The fleet had survived the first test, but the battle was only becoming more dangerous. And while sailors defended themselves at sea, strike aircraft approaching the coastline were flying directly toward a trap they never expected to find. The strike pilots believed they had accounted for every major threat along their route. Intelligence reports had identified known missile batteries, surveillance assets, and potential danger zones. Flight plans were carefully designed to avoid the most heavily defended areas. On paper, the route looked safe. Reality turned out to be very different. Hidden inland, a mobile air defense unit had spent hours waiting for an opportunity. Its operators understood the risks of using radar. Modern anti-radiation weapons are specifically designed to hunt radar emissions, turning every active transmitter into a target. The moment a radar announces its presence, it can reveal its position to aircraft many kilometers away. For that reason, experienced crews often rely on patience rather than constant scanning. Instead of transmitting continuously, the battery used passive observation methods. Operators watched the sky, monitored reports from nearby units, and waited for the exact moment when activating their radar would provide maximum benefit. They knew they would have only a short window before becoming targets themselves. That moment finally arrived. As strike aircraft approached the area, the battery activated its radar and immediately detected targets. Warning systems inside the attacking aircraft reacted almost instantly. Cockpits that had been relatively calm suddenly filled with alerts. Pilots received unmistakable indications that they were being tracked by a hostile fire control radar. Years of training took over. Defensive maneuvers began immediately. At nearly the same time, the missile battery launched its attack. Guided weapons accelerated toward the aircraft, relying on continuous updates from the radar that had detected them. For a brief moment, both sides entered a race measured in seconds. The defenders needed their radar to remain operational long enough to guide the missiles to their targets. The attackers needed to destroy that radar before the engagement could be completed. Electronic warfare aircraft monitoring the battlefield reacted instantly. Anti-radiation weapons were launched toward the source of the emissions. These missiles required no direct visual contact. They simply followed the radar's energy back to its origin. Every second the battery remained active increased its chances of success, but also increased the risk of destruction. The outcome was brutally close. The radar remained active long enough to threaten the incoming aircraft, yet not long enough to guarantee success. As the anti-radiation missile reached its target area, the battery's emissions vanished. Moments later, the threat disappeared from the attackers' displays. The pilots survived, but they understood how narrow their margin had been. A few more seconds could have produced an entirely different outcome. And as aircraft escaped one danger, another challenge was quietly waiting along the coastline itself. Modern precision weapons rely heavily on navigation systems that many people take for granted. Satellites orbiting high above Earth continuously transmit signals that allow aircraft, ships, and missiles to determine their position with extraordinary accuracy. But every military planner understands an important reality. If a signal can be received, it can also be disrupted. As the incoming strike approached its final phase, defenders activated electronic systems designed specifically to interfere with satellite navigation. Powerful transmitters flooded the area with signals intended to confuse or overwhelm the guidance systems of incoming weapons. The goal was simple. If the attackers could not determine their exact position, their accuracy would suffer. For a time, the strategy appeared effective. navigation signals became less reliable. Guidance systems were forced to compensate for increasing uncertainty. Yet modern weapons are designed with these challenges in mind. Engineers have spent decades preparing for environments where satellite navigation cannot be trusted, rather than depending entirely on GPS. Advanced missiles combine multiple guidance methods. Internal navigation systems continuously track movement and estimate position even when external information disappears. Cameras, terrain references, and stored imagery provide additional layers of verification. If one method fails, another takes over. As the coastline finally appeared ahead, these backup systems became increasingly important. Guidance computers compared real-world landmarks against stored reference data. Features matching their programmed objectives confirmed that the weapons remained on course. Attempts to deceive them became less effective with every passing second. For defenders, this realization was deeply frustrating. Electronic warfare had complicated the attack but had not stopped it. The incoming weapons continued moving toward their targets with determination that seemed almost mechanical. Every kilometer reduced the available reaction time. Every failed attempt to divert them increased pressure on the remaining defenses. The battle was entering its decisive stage. Electronic tricks, early warnings, and defensive maneuvers had bought valuable time, but now physical targets stood directly in the path of the strike. Soon, years of planning, billions of dollars in equipment, and countless hours of training would be tested in a matter of moments. The final approach had begun, and there would be no opportunity for either side to start over.